My name is Daniel, and I was a successful surgeon in my mid-30s, living what many would call the American dream. I was married to Emily, a beautiful and compassionate woman who worked as a nurse at the same hospital. Our lives intertwined seamlessly both at home and work. Though we didn't have children, our bond felt strong and unwavering. Emily and I met during our residency years. It was the classic story of love blossoming under the stress and sleepless nights of medical training. Her smile had been my beacon during those grueling hours, and I knew I was falling for her from the moment we first scrubbed into surgery together. We would often steal moments between cases, sharing a quick coffee or discussing the latest medical journals. Our shared passion for medicine was the foundation of our relationship. After a few years of dating, we decided to get married. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends and family. We said our vows under a canopy of spring blossoms in the hospital garden, a place that held so many memories for us. It was a day filled with joy, laughter, and promises of a bright future. I couldn't have been happier. Our married life was blissful. We bought a cozy house in a quiet suburb, complete with a white picket fence and a garden Emily adored. Weekends were spent tending to her flowers and cooking elaborate meals together. Emily had a knack for creating the most delicious dishes, and our dinner parties were a hit among our friends. We traveled when we could, exploring new cities and tasting exotic cuisines. Every moment with her felt like a cherished memory in the making. Professionally, we were both thriving. I had recently been promoted to head of surgery, a position I had worked tirelessly to achieve. Emily, with her nurturing nature and keen intellect, was a beloved nurse, admired by colleagues and patients alike. We often found ourselves discussing our cases at home, finding solace in each other's understanding of the pressures and triumphs of our profession. Emily's support was unwavering, her belief in me steadfast. I, in turn, adored her and appreciated her for the person she was, my partner in every sense of the word. Life wasn't always easy, of course. The demands of our jobs often meant late nights and missed dates, but we managed to carve out time for each other, whether it was a quiet evening with a movie and wine or a quick lunch at the hospital cafeteria. Emily had a way of making the mundane special. She was my anchor, my confidant, and my best friend. Our love was evident in the little things, the way she would prepare my favorite coffee just the way I liked it, the goodnight kisses, the shared laughter over a silly joke, and the comfort of her presence after a long, exhausting day. Our home was our sanctuary, a place where we could be ourselves, away from the pressures of the outside world. We often talked about our future, the possibility of children and growing old together. It all seemed so perfect, so meant to be. As the years went by, we faced the usual ups and downs of any marriage. There were arguments and misunderstandings, but nothing we couldn't resolve. Our love always seemed stronger after each hurdle, our bond deeper. We were a team, and I couldn't imagine life without her. Looking back now, those days seem like a beautiful dream, a time when everything was right in the world. Little did I know a storm was brewing on the horizon, one that would shatter the idyllic life we had built together. I remember one particular day vividly. It was a warm, sunny Saturday in May, and Emily and I had decided to spend it at home, working on our garden. She was in her element, her hands covered in soil. Her face lit up with a smile as she tended to her roses. I watched her from the porch, feeling a deep sense of contentment and love. We laughed and joked, planning our next vacation and dreaming about the future. Everything felt perfect, but as I sit here now recounting these memories, I can't help but wonder if there were signs I missed. Were there moments when her smile didn't quite reach her eyes? Did I overlook the subtle shifts in her behavior, the nights she seemed distant? It's hard to say. Love can blind you to many things, and I was blissfully unaware of the darkness that was creeping into our lives. Our nights were often filled with warmth and intimacy. We would snuggle up on the couch watching our favorite shows, or sit by the fireplace with a good book. Emily loved to read, and she would often share her favorite passages with me, her eyes lighting up with excitement. I cherished those moments, the simplicity of our life together, the love that seemed so unshakable. But as they say, the higher you rise, the harder you fall. And fall we did, in a way that I never saw coming. The foundation of our marriage, built on trust and love, was about to be tested in the most painful way imaginable. For now, though, I'll hold on to these memories, the good times that once were. They remind me of a time when life was simpler, love was pure, and my world revolved around the woman I thought I knew. Those days were the calm before the storm, the prelude to a chapter I never thought I would have to write. Our life together was truly idyllic, and as we settled into the routine of our marriage, Emily and I found new ways to grow even closer. Our mornings began with shared breakfasts. Emily loved making pancakes on Sundays, always with a new twist, like blueberries or chocolate chips. We would sit together in our kitchen, bathed in the soft morning light, sipping our coffee and talking about everything under the sun. These moments felt like the glue that held us together, a reminder of our deep connection. We had a tradition of going for evening walks in our neighborhood, something we started during our early days of dating and never stopped. These walks were our time to unwind, to leave behind the stress of the hospital, and just be with each other. Hand in hand, we would stroll down the tree-lined streets, sometimes in comfortable silence, other times lost in animated conversation. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and our plans for the future. We dreamed of one day starting a family, filling our home with the laughter of children. Despite the busy schedules, we made it a point to have date nights every week. Sometimes we would go out to our favorite restaurant, a cozy Italian place where we had our first date. Other times we stayed in, cooking together and trying out new recipes. Those nights were magical, filled with laughter, love, and the joy of just being together. Emily had a way of making every moment special, her laughter infectious and her love palpable. Our social life was vibrant, filled with friends and family who admired our relationship. We hosted dinner parties, went to barbecues, and attended hospital events together. We were known as the perfect couple, the ones who had it all. Our friends often joked about how we were the envy of everyone, a sentiment that filled me with pride and gratitude. I felt incredibly lucky to have found my soulmate, someone who understood me in ways no one else could. One summer, we decided to take a road trip across the country. It was something we had always talked about, and we finally made it happen. We packed our bags, loaded up the car, and set off on an adventure. Those weeks on the road were some of the best of my life. We explored new places, tried new foods, and made memories that I thought would last a lifetime. Emily was my partner in every sense, and our bond only grew stronger with each passing mile. At work, we were a formidable team. Our colleagues often commented on how well we worked together, our synergy evident in the operating room. We supported each other through the long hours and the emotional toll that came with our professions. Emily was my rock, the one person I could always count on. Her presence in the hospital was a source of comfort, a reminder that I was never alone. Even on the toughest days, we found solace in each other. There were times when the weight of our jobs would get to us, the loss of a patient, the stress of a complicated surgery. But we always knew we had a safe haven in our home. Emily had a way of lifting my spirits, of making me see the silver lining in every situation. Her optimism was contagious, and it kept me going even when things seemed bleak. We had our share of challenges, like any couple. There were disagreements and misunderstandings, but we always found our way back to each other. Communication was our strength. We never let things fester. Whenever there was an issue, we would sit down and talk it out, sometimes late into the night. Our commitment to each other was unwavering, and we believed that as long as we faced everything together, we could overcome any obstacle. One of the happiest times in our marriage was when we decided to renovate our home. It was a project that brought us even closer, as we spent countless hours planning, shopping, and working together. We turned our house into our dream home, a place that reflected both our personalities. Emily had an eye for design, and she transformed our space into something beautiful. I loved watching her work, her enthusiasm and creativity shining through in every detail. Amidst all the joy and contentment, there were moments that hinted at a deeper longing in Emily. Sometimes I would catch her staring out the window, a distant look in her eyes. I assumed it was the desire to start a family, something we had been talking about more seriously. We had faced some difficulties in that area, and while it was a source of sadness for us both, we remained hopeful. Emily was always the stronger one, reassuring me that it would happen when the time was right. Looking back now, I realized that perhaps there were signs I missed, subtle shifts in her behavior that I brushed off as stress or fatigue. There were times when she seemed preoccupied, moments when her laughter didn't quite reach her eyes, but I trusted her completely, and any doubts that crept into my mind were quickly dismissed. Our love was too strong, too solid for me to even consider the possibility of betrayal. One evening while we were having dinner, Emily seemed unusually quiet. I asked her if everything was okay, and she gave me a reassuring smile, saying she was just tired from a long day at work. I didn't press further, believing her words. After all, we both had those days when the demands of our jobs left us drained. I reached across the table and took her hand, feeling the familiar warmth and comfort of her touch. In that moment, everything felt right again. Our weekends continued to be filled with activities we loved. We would go hiking, visit local farmers markets, and spend lazy afternoons reading in our garden. Emily had a green thumb, and our garden was her pride and joy. She would spend hours tending to her plants, creating a sanctuary of beauty and tranquility. I loved watching her in those moments, her face serene and content, her hands moving gracefully through the flowers. As the seasons changed, so did the chapters of our life together. We celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays with a sense of gratitude and joy. Each milestone was a testament to our love and commitment. I often found myself reflecting on how lucky I was to have Emily by my side. She was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, kind, intelligent, loving, and beautiful. Our life was perfect, or so I thought. But as I recount these memories, I can't help but wonder if I was too blind, too trusting. Were there cracks in our perfect life that I chose to ignore? Did I miss the signs that something was amiss? It's easy to question everything in hindsight, to see the shadows that I was once oblivious to. In the end, love is about trust, and I trusted Emily with all my heart. I believed in our bond, our promises, and our future. Little did I know the foundation of our marriage was about to be shaken, and the life we had built together was on the brink of collapse. The storm was coming, and I was unprepared for the devastation it would bring. For now, I'll hold on to these memories, the moments of happiness that defined our life together. They are a stark contrast to the pain and betrayal that lie ahead, a reminder of what once was and what could have been. The journey from bliss to heartbreak was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same again. Life continued its familiar rhythm for a while longer, but subtle changes began to creep in, almost imperceptibly at first. Emily and I still shared our morning routines and evening walks, but there was a growing distance between us that I couldn't quite pinpoint. It was as if an invisible barrier had started to form slowly and silently. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Emily seemed distracted. Her eyes kept darting to her phone, which buzzed more frequently than usual. I noticed she would quickly glance at the screen, her expression unreadable, before putting it face down on the table. It was a small thing, but it left me with a vague sense of unease. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to the demands of her job. Nurses often had to deal with urgent matters after all, but the frequency of these moments increased. Emily began staying late at the hospital more often, citing increased workloads and demanding patience. I understood the pressures of our profession, and I didn't question her. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Our conversations became less intimate, more superficial. We still talked about our days, but the depth and warmth that once characterized our interactions were fading. One Friday night, I decided to surprise Emily at the hospital with her favorite takeout. I thought it would be a nice gesture, a way to reconnect and show her I was thinking about her. When I arrived, the nurse's station was bustling, but I didn't see Emily. I asked one of her colleagues if she was around, and the nurse gave me a puzzled look. "Emily left about an hour ago," she said. "She mentioned she had some personal errands to run." I thanked her, feeling a knot of confusion tightening in my stomach. I hadn't heard from Emily about any errands. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. I waited in the hospital parking lot for another half hour, hoping to catch her, but she didn't return. Eventually, I drove home, the takeout cooling on the passenger seat. When Emily finally walked through the door later that evening, she seemed surprised to see me up. "Hey, I thought you would be asleep by now," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "I tried calling you," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "I brought your favorite takeout to the hospital, but they said you had left." She looked momentarily flustered, then recovered quickly. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't think to call. I had to run a few errands and lost track of time." "Everything okay?" I asked, searching her eyes for answers. "Yeah, everything's fine," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Just a busy day." I nodded, but the unease lingered. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't help but notice how distant she seemed, her mind clearly elsewhere. Over the next few weeks, similar incidents occurred. Emily's phone buzzed incessantly, and she was often preoccupied, lost in thought. There were more late nights at the hospital, more unexplained absences. Each time I questioned her, she had a plausible explanation, but my doubts continued to grow. One night I woke up to find Emily missing from our bed. I found her in the living room staring out the window, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. She jumped when she saw me, quickly putting her phone away. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, just restless," she replied, her eyes avoiding mine. "Is everything okay, Em? You seem distant lately." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I'm just stressed with work, Daniel. It's nothing to worry about." I wanted to believe her, to dismiss my growing concerns as paranoia. But something inside me knew that this was more than just work stress. One Saturday, Emily announced she had to go to a medical conference out of town. It was short notice, and I was surprised, as she usually informed me well in advance about such events. Nevertheless, I didn't question her, trusting her professionalism. She packed her bags and left early in the morning, leaving me alone with my thoughts. That evening, as I sat alone in our living room, I received a call from one of Emily's colleagues, Sarah. We had known Sarah for years, and she often joined us for dinner parties and gatherings. "Hey, Daniel," Sarah's voice was hesitant. "I wanted to talk to you about something. It's probably nothing, but I thought you should know." "What's up?" I asked, my heart beginning to race. "I noticed that Emily has been spending a lot of time with one of her patients, Mr. Johnson. He's a frequent visitor at the hospital, and they've been having a lot of private conversations. I didn't think much of it at first, but it's been happening more and more." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Are you saying you think something is going on between them?" "I don't know," Sarah replied. "I just thought you should be aware. Maybe it's nothing, but it seemed odd." I thanked her for the information, my mind racing. I tried calling Emily, but again it went straight to voicemail. I spent the rest of the night in a state of anxiety, my mind conjuring up worst-case scenarios. When Emily returned from her conference, she seemed cheerful, almost too cheerful. I didn't bring up Sarah's call immediately, wanting to observe her behavior first. Over the next few days, I paid closer attention to her actions, looking for any signs that might confirm my suspicions. One evening, I noticed Emily had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. My heart pounded as I picked it up, feeling a mix of guilt and desperation. I knew it was wrong to invade her privacy, but I needed answers. I unlocked her phone and scrolled through her messages, finding nothing unusual at first. Then I came across a series of messages from a contact saved as J. My stomach tightened as I read the texts. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Thinking about you all the time." I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. The messages were intimate, filled with a familiarity that spoke of more than just friendship. I knew then that my worst fears were true. When Emily came out of the shower, I was waiting for her in the living room, her phone in my hand. She looked startled when she saw me, her eyes flicking to the phone. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and hurt. She hesitated, then nodded, sitting down across from me. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I saw the messages, Emily, from Jay." "Who is he?" Her face went pale, and for a moment she looked like she might deny everything. Then she sighed, her shoulders slumping. "He's a patient. John Johnson." "And?" I prompted, my voice growing colder. Emily looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "We've been seeing each other. It started a few months ago. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did." The room seemed to spin around me as her words sank in. I felt a mixture of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. "How could you do this to us, Emily? To me?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. I was feeling lonely and he was there." "Lonely?" I repeated, my voice rising. "We have a life together, a home. How could you feel lonely?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know. I love you, Daniel, but something was missing. I made a terrible mistake." I stood up, unable to look at her. "A mistake? This isn't just a mistake, Emily. You betrayed me. You betrayed us." She reached out, but I pulled away. "Please, Daniel, let's talk about this. We can work through it." But I couldn't hear her. All I could think about was the betrayal, the lies, and the years we had spent building a life that now seemed shattered beyond repair. I stormed out of the house, needing space to think, to process the bombshell that had just been dropped on me. As I drove aimlessly through the night, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. They all fought for dominance, leaving me exhausted and broken. I pulled over to the side of the road, resting my head on the steering wheel, trying to make sense of everything. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved and trusted more than anyone else become a stranger who had betrayed me in the worst possible way? The questions swirled in my mind, but there were no answers, only the cold, hard reality of her infidelity. I stayed out for hours, driving aimlessly, trying to clear my head. When I finally returned home, the house was dark and silent. Emily was asleep on the couch, her face still streaked with tears. I felt a pang of sadness and guilt, but it was quickly overshadowed by the anger that had taken root in my heart. I went to bed unable to sleep, my mind racing with thoughts of what had happened and what lay ahead. Our perfect life was in ruins, and I didn't know if it could ever be rebuilt. The storm had arrived, and it was only just beginning. The days following Emily's confession were a blur of pain and confusion. I went through the motions of my daily routine, but everything felt surreal, as if I were living someone else's life. The trust and love that had once defined our marriage now seemed like distant memories, replaced by a chasm of betrayal and hurt. Emily tried to reach out, to explain, but I couldn't bring myself to listen. Her words felt hollow, and every time I looked at her, all I could see was the man she had been with, the man who had come between us. I spent most nights on the couch, unable to sleep in the same bed where she had betrayed me. One evening, about a week after the initial confrontation, Emily approached me as I sat in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She sat down beside me, leaving a careful distance between us. "Daniel," she began softly, "we need to talk. Please, just hear me out." I turned off the TV and looked at her, my expression hard. "Fine, talk." She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I know I've hurt you and I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." John was a patient who came in regularly, and we started talking. At first it was just casual, but over time we got closer. "How close?" I asked, my voice cold. She hesitated, then continued. "We started having lunch together, then coffee. He was going through a tough time and I wanted to help. But somewhere along the way it became more than that. We started confiding in each other, sharing things we didn't share with anyone else. It felt comforting." "Comforting?" I repeated, my anger simmering beneath the surface. "So you turned to him for comfort instead of me?" Tears welled up in her eyes again. "I don't know why, Daniel. I was feeling so lonely and he was there. One night, after a particularly hard day, we ended up kissing. It was wrong and I knew it, but I didn't stop. It happened again and then more." I clenched my fists, trying to keep my composure. "How long has this been going on?" 3 months, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I know I betrayed your trust and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I love you, and I never stopped loving you." Her words felt like a dagger to my heart. "Love? You call this love? Sneaking around behind my back, lying to me, betraying everything we built together?" She flinched but didn't look away. "I know I messed up, Daniel. I was weak and selfish and I made terrible choices. But I want to make things right. I want to fix this, if you'll let me." I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. "Fix this? How do you propose we fix this, Emily? How do we go back to the way things were?" She looked down, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I don't know, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to try. Counseling, therapy, anything. I just don't want to lose you." The sincerity in her voice tugged at something deep inside me, but the anger and hurt were too overwhelming. "I need time to think," I said, turning away from her. "I can't do this right now." I left the house, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to clear my head, but the thoughts kept coming, relentless and unforgiving. How could she do this to me? To us? The life we had built together was crumbling, and I didn't know if it could be salvaged. Over the next few days, I tried to avoid Emily as much as possible. I threw myself into my work, taking on extra shifts and staying late at the hospital. The operating room became my refuge, a place where I could lose myself in the precision and focus required for surgery. But even there, the thoughts would intrude, breaking my concentration and leaving me on edge. One afternoon, while I was in the middle of a particularly complex procedure, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Normally I would ignore it, but something compelled me to glance at the screen. It was a text from Sarah, Emily's colleague, who had first alerted me to the situation. "Daniel, I think you should know that John is here again. He's been asking about Emily. A surge of anger and jealousy washed over me. I finished the surgery as quickly as I could, then rushed to the nurse's station. I spotted John talking to another nurse, his back turned to me. Without thinking, I marched up to him and grabbed his shoulder, spinning him around. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice low and dangerous. John looked startled, then composed himself. "I'm here for a checkup," he said calmly. "Is there a problem, Dr. Daniels?" "Yes, there's a problem," I snapped. "Stay away from my wife." His expression remained infuriatingly composed. "Emily and I are just friends. There's nothing inappropriate going on." I tightened my grip on his shoulder, my anger boiling over. "Friends don't kiss and sneak around behind their spouses' backs. You stay away from her or you'll regret it." John's eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read. "I understand your anger, but this is between you and Emily. I'm not the one who made vows to you." The truth of his words stung, and I released him, shoving him back. "This is your last warning. Stay away." He nodded, then turned and walked away, leaving me seething with rage. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but the encounter had only intensified my feelings of betrayal and hurt. I knew I needed to confront Emily again, to get to the bottom of this once and for all. That evening, I returned home to find Emily sitting on the couch, her eyes puffy from crying. She looked up as I entered, her expression a mixture of hope and fear. "Daniel," she began, but I cut her off. "John was at the hospital today," I said, my voice cold. "He claims you're just friends, is that true?" She hesitated, then nodded. "We were friends, but it became more. I'm sorry, Daniel. I never wanted it to go this far." I sat down across from her, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "Why, Emily? Why did you turn to him instead of me?" She wiped away a tear. "I don't know. I was feeling lonely, and he was there. I never stopped loving you, but something was missing. I know that's no excuse, but it's the truth." Her words hung in the air, heavy and painful. "Do you still love him?" She shook her head vehemently. "No, it was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I love you, Daniel, and I want to fix this." I stared at her, searching for any sign of deception. "Why should I believe you? How do I know this won't happen again?" "I'll do anything," she said desperately. "Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I want to make this right, to prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve." Her plea was heartfelt, but the wounds were too fresh, the betrayal too deep. "I need time," I said finally. "Time to think, to decide if I can ever trust you again." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here waiting and hoping that we can find a way to move forward." I stood up, feeling the weight of the decision ahead of me. "I'm staying at a hotel for a while. I need space." She didn't try to stop me, just watched as I packed a bag and left the house. As I drove away, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The woman I loved had betrayed me, and I didn't know if our marriage could survive. The future seemed uncertain, filled with pain and doubt. Over the next few days, I stayed at a hotel, trying to sort through my emotions. I talked to a therapist seeking guidance on how to process the betrayal and decide the future of my marriage. The sessions were helpful, but the hurt and anger remained, stubbornly refusing to dissipate. Emily called and texted, but I kept my responses brief. I needed time to heal, to figure out if forgiveness was possible. I knew she was hurting too, but I couldn't let that influence my decision. This was about more than just her. It was about me, about our marriage, about whether we could ever rebuild the trust that had been shattered. One evening, as I sat in the hotel room, I received a message from Sarah. "Hey Daniel, just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I'm here if you need to talk." I appreciated her concern, and for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. But it would take time, effort, and a willingness to confront the pain head on. As I stared out the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, I made a decision. I would give it one more chance. Not for Emily, but for myself, for the love we had shared, and for the hope that we could find a way to heal. I picked up my phone and called Emily. She answered on the first ring, her voice trembling. "Daniel? Emily," I said, taking a deep breath. "I'm coming home. We need to talk." She let out a shaky breath. "Thank you, Daniel. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." As I hung up the phone, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I owed it to myself to try. to see if there was any way to salvage the love that had once been the cornerstone of my life. The next steps would be crucial, and I knew that nothing was guaranteed. But I was willing to try to face the pain and work towards healing. Only time would tell if we could rebuild what had been broken. But for now, I was willing to take the first step. Returning home was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. The house, once a place of warmth and comfort, now felt cold and unfamiliar. Every corner held memories of our life together, memories that were now tainted by Emily's betrayal. As I walked through the door, Emily was waiting in the living room, her face a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Thank you for coming back," she said softly. I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "We need to talk, Emily, about everything." She motioned for me to sit, and we settled on the couch, a careful distance between us. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. "I want to know everything," I said, my voice steady. "No more lies, no more half-truths. I need to know what happened and why." Emily nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "I'll tell you everything, Daniel. I owe you that much." She began to speak, her voice shaky at first but growing stronger as she continued. "It started about 6 months ago. John was a regular patient, and we got to talking. At first, it was just small talk, but over time, we started sharing more personal things. He was going through a rough patch, and I wanted to help. I never meant for it to go beyond that, but—" Her voice trailed off, and I could see the pain in her eyes. "But it did." I finished for her. She nodded, tears welling up. "Yes, one night we were both working late, and we ended up talking in the break room. One thing led to another, and we kissed. I knew it was wrong, but I felt so drawn to him. After that, we started meeting outside of work. It was just coffee and lunch at first, but it quickly escalated." "How many times?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then answered, 4 times. We met at a hotel each time." The room seemed to spin around me as her words sank in. 4 times, 4 betrayals. I struggled to maintain my composure. "And you never thought to tell me to stop." She shook her head, her tears falling freely now. "I was scared, Daniel. I knew I was making a terrible mistake, but I didn't know how to stop. I felt trapped in a situation I couldn't control, but I never stopped loving you. I know that sounds hollow, but it's the truth." I stood up, needing to put some distance between us. "Love? How can you say that? You betrayed me, lied to me. How can I ever trust you again?" Emily sobbed, her face buried in her hands. "I don't know, Daniel. I don't know how to fix this. All I can do is try to make it right, to show you that I regret everything and that I want to make amends." Her words, though sincere, felt like empty promises. I walked to the window, staring out at the garden Emily had so lovingly tended. It seemed like a cruel joke now, a symbol of the life we had built and the trust she had shattered. "I don't know if I can do this, Emily," I said finally. "I don't know if I can forgive you." She stood up, walking over to me. "Please, Daniel, just give me a chance. Let me prove to you that I can change, that we can rebuild our life together." I turned to face her, the pain and anger evident in my eyes. "How do you expect me to believe you? How do you expect me to move past this?" She reached out, taking my hands in hers. "I don't expect it to be easy, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, anything. Just give me a chance to make things right." Her desperation was palpable, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the love we once shared. But it was quickly overshadowed by the enormity of her betrayal. "I need time," I said finally. "Time to think, to decide if I can ever trust you again." Emily nodded, her tears still falling. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here waiting, hoping that we can find a way to move forward." I spent the next few weeks living in a state of limbo, torn between the love I still felt for Emily and the betrayal that had shattered our marriage. We started going to counseling, hoping to find a way to heal the wounds and rebuild the trust. The sessions were painful, filled with raw emotions and difficult conversations. Emily was committed to the process, pouring her heart out and trying to make amends. She apologized repeatedly, expressing her regret and remorse. She talked about the loneliness she had felt, the emotional void that John had filled. It was hard to hear, but I knew it was necessary if we were ever to move forward. Our counselor, Dr. Thompson, was a calm and compassionate guide through the turmoil. She helped us navigate the complex emotions, encouraging us to be honest and vulnerable with each other. She emphasized the importance of communication and trust, the pillars of any relationship. Rebuilding trust takes time, she said during one session. It won't happen overnight and it won't be easy, but if both of you are committed to the process, there's a chance for healing. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with hope. I'm committed, Daniel. I want to fix this to prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve. I nodded, feeling a mixture of hope and doubt. I'm willing to try, Emily, but it will take time. As the weeks went by, we slowly started to reconnect. Emily made a conscious effort to be more present, to share her thoughts and feelings with me. She deleted John's contact information, cut all ties with him, and focused on rebuilding our marriage. She sought individual therapy as well, hoping to understand the reasons behind her actions and to work on her own issues. I tried to be open to the process, to let go of the anger and hurt. It was difficult, and there were days when I felt overwhelmed by the betrayal. But I knew that if there was any chance of saving our marriage, I needed to give it my all. One evening, as we sat in the garden, Emily turned to me, her expression earnest. I know I've hurt you deeply, Daniel, and I know it will take time to heal, but I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I love you, and I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. I appreciate that, Emily, and I'm willing to give it a try, but you have to understand that it's going to be a long road. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. I understand, and I'm ready for that journey no matter how long it takes. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Slowly the wounds began to heal, and we started to find our way back to each other. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks along the way. But we were both committed to the process, determined to rebuild the love and trust that had once defined our marriage. Emily's efforts were genuine, and over time I began to see the changes in her. She was more open, more honest, and more attentive. Our conversations grew deeper, and the intimacy that had once been lost began to return. We spent more time together, rekindling the connection that had been overshadowed by betrayal. One evening as we sat by the fireplace, Emily took my hand. Thank you for giving me this chance, Daniel. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm grateful for your willingness to try. I squeezed her hand, feeling a sense of hope that had been absent for so long. I still love you, Emily, and I'm willing to keep trying as long as we both are. As the fire crackled beside us, I felt a glimmer of the future we had once dreamed of. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long while, I felt that it might be possible to find our way back to each other. The betrayal had left deep scars, but with time, effort, and love, there was a chance for healing. The journey wasn't over, but we were taking the first steps together, hand in hand, toward a future that, despite the pain and heartbreak, still held the promise of hope. The journey towards healing was slow and arduous. Each day brought new challenges, moments of doubt, and flashes of anger. The memories of Emily's betrayal were always there, lurking in the background, but I was determined to give our marriage a fighting chance. I couldn't ignore the love that still existed between us, nor the life we had built together. We continued with counseling, both as a couple and individually. Dr. Thompson guided us through the painful process, helping us confront the issues that had led to the betrayal. She encouraged us to communicate openly, to express our fears and insecurities without judgment. It was difficult but necessary work. One afternoon during a particularly intense session, Dr. Thompson asked us to share our deepest fears about the future of our marriage. Emily went first, her voice trembling with emotion. I'm afraid that no matter how hard I try, I'll never be able to make up for what I did, she said, tears streaming down her face. I'm scared that Daniel will never fully trust me again, and that our marriage will always be tainted by my betrayal. I listened, my heart aching for her. Despite the pain she had caused, I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes, the deep regret for her actions. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath, trying to put my feelings into words. I'm afraid that I'll never be able to move past this, I admitted. That every time I look at Emily, I'll see the betrayal. I'm scared that the love we once had will never be the same, that it will always be overshadowed by what happened. Dr. Thompson nodded, her expression compassionate. These fears are valid, and they are a normal part of the healing process. The key is to acknowledge them and to work through them together. Trust can be rebuilt, but it takes time and consistent effort from both of you. Emily reached out and took my hand, her grip firm and reassuring. I know it will be hard, Daniel, but I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to rebuild your trust and to make our marriage stronger. Her words, though comforting, didn't erase the pain, but they gave me a glimmer of hope, a small light in the darkness that had enveloped us. I knew that healing would be a long and difficult journey, but I was willing to try, for both of us. As the weeks went by, we continued to make progress, albeit slowly. We started to rebuild our routines, finding comfort in the familiar activities that had once brought us joy. Our evening walks became a time for open conversation, a chance to reconnect and to share our thoughts and feelings. Emily was more attentive, more present, and more committed to our relationship than ever before. She went out of her way to show her love and appreciation, to make me feel valued and cherished. I could see the changes in her, the genuine desire to make things right. One evening as we walked through the neighborhood, Emily turned to me, her expression earnest. I want to do something special for us, something that will help us heal and move forward. How about we take a trip, just the two of us? I hesitated, the idea of a getaway both appealing and daunting. Where would we go? Somewhere we've never been. A place where we can create new memories and leave the past behind, even if just for a little while, she suggested, her eyes hopeful. I thought about it. The prospect of a fresh start enticing. All right, I agreed. Let's do it. We decided on a small coastal town, a place known for its serene beaches and charming cottages. It was the perfect escape, a chance to step away from the daily reminders of our pain and to focus on each other. We booked a cozy cottage by the sea and set off on our journey, both hopeful and apprehensive. The drive to the coast was filled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. We talked about our hopes for the trip, our plans for the future, and the steps we needed to take to rebuild our relationship. It felt good to be away from the familiar surroundings that held so many painful memories, to have a chance to start anew. When we arrived at the cottage, the sight of the ocean stretching out before us took my breath away. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was soothing, a reminder of the beauty and tranquility that still existed in the world. We unpacked our bags and settled in, both of us eager to make the most of our time together. The days that followed were filled with long walks on the beach, quiet moments by the fire, and heartfelt conversations. We explored the town, visited local shops and restaurants, and immersed ourselves in the peaceful surroundings. The trip was a chance to reconnect, to rediscover the love that had once been the foundation of our marriage. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to me, her expression serious. There's something I need to tell you, Daniel, something I haven't shared before. I felt a pang of anxiety, wondering what new revelation was coming. What is it? She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with emotion. I've been working on myself, trying to understand why I did what I did. In therapy, I realized that I've been carrying a lot of unresolved pain from my past, things I never dealt with. It doesn't excuse my actions, but I want you to know that I'm committed to healing, not just for us, but for myself as well. Her honesty touched me, and I reached out to take her hand. Thank you for sharing that, Emily. I appreciate your willingness to confront your past and to work on yourself. She squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with gratitude. I want to be the best version of myself for you, for us. I know it will take time, but I'm willing to do the work. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time, I felt that we were truly moving forward. The love we shared, though scarred by betrayal, was still there, and it was worth fighting for. Returning home from the trip, we felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. We continued with counseling, both individually and as a couple, and focused on rebuilding our life together. There were still difficult moments, days when the pain and doubt resurfaced, but we faced them together, determined to overcome them. Emily's commitment to our marriage was unwavering, and over time I began to see the trust slowly rebuilding. It wasn't a smooth or linear process, but the small steps we took each day brought us closer. We learned to communicate better, to express our needs and fears openly, and to support each other through the ups and downs. One evening, a few months after our trip, we decided to host a small dinner party for our friends. It was a significant step, a chance to share our progress and to celebrate the strides we had made. The evening was filled with laughter and joy. a reminder of the life we had once enjoyed and were working to rebuild. As the night drew to a close, Emily and I stood in the kitchen, cleaning up and reflecting on the evening. She turned to me, a smile on her face. "We did it, Daniel. We're getting through this one day at a time." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. "Yes, we are. And I'm grateful for your commitment and your love." She wrapped her arms around me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine sense of hope. The road to healing was long and filled with challenges, but together we were finding our way. The journey wasn't over, and there would still be difficult days ahead, but with each step we took, the love and trust that had once defined our marriage were slowly being rebuilt. The scars of betrayal would always be there, but they were becoming a part of our story, a testament to our resilience and our determination to move forward. As I held Emily close, I knew that we were on the right path. The pain and heartbreak of the past were giving way to a future filled with hope and possibility. It wouldn't be easy, but together we were stronger, and we were ready to face whatever came our way. The months following our decision to reconcile were a testament to both our resilience and our love. The journey had been fraught with pain and doubt, but we had made it through the storm, emerging stronger and more committed than ever. It wasn't easy, and the road ahead still held challenges. But for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. Emily and I continued to attend counseling, both individually and together. These sessions were crucial in helping us navigate the complex emotions that lingered. Dr. Thompson guided us through the process, emphasizing the importance of patience and understanding. She encouraged us to set realistic expectations and to celebrate the small victories along the way. One of the most significant changes was the way we communicated. We had learned to be more open and honest with each other, to express our needs and fears without judgment. This newfound transparency brought us closer, allowing us to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced them together, determined to overcome them. Our daily routines slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. We resumed our morning breakfasts, evening walks, and weekend outings. These moments, once taken for granted, now felt precious and meaningful. Each shared activity was a reminder of our commitment to each other and to the life we were rebuilding. Emily was more attentive and present than ever before. She made a conscious effort to show her love and appreciation in small but significant ways. Whether it was leaving me a heartfelt note, surprising me with my favorite meal, or simply being there to listen, her actions spoke volumes. I could see the changes in her, the genuine desire to make amends and to be a better partner. One evening as we sat in the garden, Emily turned to me, her expression serious. "Daniel, I want to talk about something important." I looked at her, feeling a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with determination. "I've been thinking a lot about our future, and I believe it's time for us to take another step forward. I know we talked about starting a family before everything happened, and I want to revisit that conversation." The mention of starting a family brought a rush of emotions. It was a dream we had once shared, a vision of our future that had been put on hold. "Are you sure, Emily? It's a big step, and we've been through so much already." She nodded, her gaze unwavering. "I am sure, Daniel. I believe that we can do this, that we can create a future together. We've come so far, and I want to continue building our life. I want to have a family with you." Her words filled me with a sense of hope and excitement. The thought of starting a family was both daunting and exhilarating, but it felt like the right step. "I want that too, Emily. Let's do it." We began the process of planning for our future, discussing everything from our finances to our hopes and dreams for our potential children. It was a time filled with anticipation and joy, a stark contrast to the pain and uncertainty we had endured. We knew that it wouldn't be easy, but we were ready to face the challenges together. As the months went by, we continued to strengthen our relationship, focusing on the present while planning for the future. The trust that had once been shattered was slowly being rebuilt, one step at a time. It was a process that required patience, effort, and unwavering commitment, but we were determined to make it work. One day, Emily surprised me with news that filled our hearts with joy. "Daniel, I'm pregnant," she announced, her eyes shining with happiness. The words felt like a dream come true, a culmination of our efforts to rebuild our life together. I pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling a rush of emotions. "That's incredible, Emily. I can't wait to start this journey with you. The months of pregnancy were a time of excitement and preparation. We attended prenatal classes, decorated the nursery, and eagerly anticipated the arrival of our baby. Each milestone brought us closer, reinforcing the bond that had been tested but never broken. As the due date approached, we found ourselves reflecting on the journey we had taken. The pain and betrayal of the past were still there, but they had become part of our story, a testament to our resilience and determination. We had faced the darkest of times and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the future with hope and love. When the day finally arrived and Emily went into labor, I was by her side, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement. The hours were long and exhausting, but the moment our baby was born, all the pain and struggle faded away, replaced by overwhelming joy. "Welcome to the world, little one," I whispered, tears streaming down my face as I held our newborn daughter for the first time. Emily looked at me, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. "We did it, Daniel. We made it through." As we settled into our new roles as parents, the challenges and joys of raising a child brought us even closer. The sleepless nights, the endless diaper changes, and the moments of pure bliss were all part of the journey we had chosen to take together. Our daughter became the center of our world, a living reminder of the love and commitment that had seen us through the darkest times. Each day with her was a gift, a chance to create new memories and to build a future filled with hope and possibility. One evening, as we sat together watching our daughter sleep, Emily turned to me, her expression serene. "Thank you, Daniel, for giving us this chance. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm so grateful for the life we've built." I kissed her forehead, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "Thank you, Emily, for your love and commitment. We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger. I wouldn't want to be on this journey with anyone else." As we looked at our sleeping daughter, I knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but we were ready to face them together. The pain of the past had given way to a future filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. Our marriage had been tested in ways we could never have imagined, but we had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more committed than ever. The scars of betrayal would always be there, but they were a part of our story, a testament to the strength of our love and our determination to move forward. As we held each other, I knew that the future was bright and that together we could overcome anything. The journey of healing was ongoing, but with each step, we were building a life filled with love, trust, and unwavering commitment. And so, we moved forward, ready to embrace whatever the future held, confident in the strength of our love and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel.